Money in our 40s. Hey, I guess you could say this is the crescendo episode of the decades that we've just completed on money. We've done 20s, we've done 30s. This is the 40s. If you want more, you can go to Retire Right on YouTube or podcast, and we continue the 50s, 60s and 70s on that channel.
Yeah, some of us will have to start listening to that.
Yeah, you will, Johnson. Look, we had Rach Kroon here for the first two, 20s and 30s. Unfortunately for us and fortunately for her, she's holidaying in Spain at the moment. We couldn't get her back to join us. But I think what's your view, John, of the 40s decade, if you were to summarise? Because this could be a pretty wild episode.
I would peg the 40s as half-time. You know, we love a sporting analogy over this side of the table. It's because we've really been, give or take, working for 20 years.
Yeah.
And then there's another 20 to come till, give or take, retirement. So I think it's a chance to maybe say, well, okay, the first 10 years I may have been a little bit loose with my money. I may have done some study. I may have trialled a few different jobs. I might have done some travel, might have started a family, who knows. But anyway, we get a little bit more serious in our 30s. We've maybe accumulated some asset, hopefully income-producing ones. And then we get to this period where we say, right, the past, we've got 20 years. The time is, I suppose the time's ticking now to get it done. And that's where I think I was talking to someone this morning, I think our risk profile changes a little bit as well.
Like more risk or less risk?
I think less risk because
that's interesting.
The end is coming closer to, when we say end, not the end of it, well, the end of our life is, but retirement. So I feel the people I speak to in our 40s, 50s don't necessarily want to stick their neck out too far. 20s, 30s we can recover from. Starting in our 40s, we probably say, well, we're going to maybe pull it back a little bit. But is that right or wrong? Don't know. I personally think we still should be having a good old red crack. But, yeah, I think that's the peg in the sand halftime speech.
What I think, particularly for the 40s, you did talk about the risk profile there, which is interesting. Something stood out to me that if we are at halftime and we're looking like crap, I don't have enough super or I don't have enough assets, what can happen is the risk profile can increase due to desperation.
Yes. And
you go and do dumb things and get flushed. And you particularly see that in the 50s decade and those 5-10 years before, quote unquote, whatever your retirement age is. So you just have to be careful on that. But a couple of things, the way society is at the moment, we know that everything has moved 10 years. So when you were, in your late teens, you basically were out of home with a full-time job and a family working the coal mine. Like it was wild. Where your kids, statistically, you've got 3 kids, and I'm making this statistic up, but you may still have one at home when they're 30 years old.
If not 3.
Yeah. So society has moved. On the other end, 65 is no longer you're cooked, you're done, you're out the pasture. People are living longer, we're healthier. And so I think we need to understand that as well. But my big thing about this episode and money in your 40s, and we've touched on these other kind of topics before, this episode has to be the biggest wake-up call that you've ever received in relation to probably your life generally. Like, what are you doing with your freaking life? What are you doing?
Yeah.
2, what are you doing with your finances and how are you setting up for the you of tomorrow a la retirement?
Yeah, and I think we spoke about it a little bit in our 30s, and it's like the feather brick truck sort of moments. Like we need to start to get a little bit of that in shape in our 30s, and of course we're templating things, and they're just labels for episodes. But retirement is not the 60, 65 that it used to be. According to the government it is, but you're right, we're living longer. There's two choices is, okay, still use that 60, 65 as a guide. You just simply need more in retirement because you're living longer, don't you? Or you say, because I don't look at retirement as, right, this is the day I'm going to retire and call it quits. I don't like using the word in general. I don't know about you, but I feel as though as long as you've got energy and you're keeping yourself healthy and you've got motivation and purpose, that this journey goes forever, and you just have these choices that you want to make to say, well, yeah, I want to pull back 1 or 2 days a week so I can do these other things that I want to tick off on.
Yeah. So I think in kind of opening, as this is your wake-up call, why the heck are you still in consumer debt? Why are you still living week on week? Why don't you have a plan to have a strong financial future? Now, there are probably legitimate reasons for for everything.
Yeah.
If you want to revert with me in the comments, if you think it's insensitive for me to say, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? You can have explanations, but don't have excuses.
No.
And I think the whole thing is, for example, you might have a $10,000 personal loan because something that happened, it was outside of your control. I didn't want this, but there's a difference there between I systematically overspent every year for the last 10 years and the debt's just now a personal loan and I'm rolling it. So I think I'm not after your excuses. I've got lots of excuses for a lot of things in my life. There is likely an explanation, but we're here now. We need to get on with it. You need to, and we'll talk about it, you need to get your spouse and your partner on the same page. What are you doing with the kids? What are you doing with retirement? What are you doing with wealth? What are you doing with your job? What are you doing with your career? Because I'm sorry, you're in your 40s now. You've been warned as at now. You've got probably 20 good years, 25 good years to continue building wealth or to start building wealth.
Agree. And the other end of that spectrum is I haven't got 10 grand of bad debt in my 40s. I've actually dialed in. I've been investing, or I've got my own home and I've got a reasonably comfortable mortgage and I can see myself living there for the next 15 years. They're not sitting back in comfortable seat, but they're sitting there saying, well, I'm going to really enjoy these next 20 years from a lifestyle perspective because I might have kids. I want to see them grow up and spend time with them, and I want to do bits and pieces that I didn't do in my first 20 years of adulthood because I was on the hustle.
That's right. And I think it is that whole, you have a choice to, like, from today, to continue on your path. There's probably the three things. You're in a financial mess, or life isn't as good as what you wanted and you hate it.
Yeah.
So you've got the choice to go, such is life and I'm a victim and all that, and you stay there. Awesome. You can look at your situation and go, this is not ideal. I'm making a change. I'm getting intentional. From today, I'm sending this episode to my friend, to my partner, to everyone. I want to get dialed in. And the third one, a lot of people who listen to our podcast regularly are pretty dialed in with their finances. This is the reminder to them to keep on going. If you want to take the foot off the gas, knock yourself out, live a little, travel a little, do all the things. So I think it will be a really fun episode. And my name is Glen James, joined by John Pidgeon. Let's do a podcast right now. You're listening to Money, 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 or as the regulars like to call us, M3. Everything discussed on the podcast is general advice only, which I'm licensed to give, and details can be found in the show notes. My name's Glen James, former financial advisor, now podcaster. I host this show and a show called Retire Right. I've also got a book called The Quick Start Guide to Investing, which you can check out wherever good books are sold, or there's a link in the show notes. Otherwise, thanks so much for listening today. Now on with the show. Okay, I want to start to set the scene with a projection or some information just so that we can have as a bit of a baseline thing. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll put it up on the screen, but I'll obviously read this stuff as well. A basic projection of superannuation, I'll read through the assumptions first. Current age is 40, target 65 or retiring when we're stopping this assumption. The current super balance is $200,000. The current total salary package is $90,000, which is about an $80,000 base and 12% SG to super, which is about $9,500. We're going to index salary annually at 3%. We're going to include a $500 a month salary sacrifice to superannuation.
Extra.
We're just going to assume an 8.5% return. Now, it's really hard. I've kind of had to munch this myself. I've assumed 0.5% for internal tax rate, so the return was like 9%, but that 8.5% is after fees, and the fees that I've used for the super account is 0.8% and inflation on the super account of 3%. So basically how it works is when we do projections online, John, we need to always look at today's dollars and use inflation, because there are so many people online, call them influencers, call them butchers, bakers, candlestick makers, that will do this, $500 a month for the next 20 years is $3 million. Well, that's cute, but it's not a real accurate understanding of today. Before I move on to, so just as it is there, in today's dollars, that person would have $1.05 million in their superannuation. Okay. So that's just a baseline $1 million at age 65. If they have 200,000 at age 40 in their super. A couple of things there. The AFSA website, which is the Australian Superannuation Fund Association, they've got this whole thing about retirement standards, and they call it the ASFA comfortable standard. To have a comfortable retirement, they're saying that a single person needs $52,000 a year, and a couple $73,000 a year. You can look at the AFSA super website for kind of all their assumptions. And basically what they've done is they've worked that backwards, and it does tell you, a comfortable retirement, modest, and if you are a renter. So it assumes that by retirement you own a house. It assumes that there is some age pension there. But all that to say, based on their vibe of having a comfortable retirement at age 65, a couple needs $73,000 a year and a single needs $52,000. They're saying if you're age 40, at the moment, you'd want to have $168,000 in super.
So what someone that's listening to the show that's age 40 is checking their super balance right now and saying, have I got 168? Have I got 200? Have I got 50?
Yeah.
What would you say the average 40-year-old in Australia might have now?
Well, it's probably around that, maybe a bit less.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know some friends in their 40s that have maybe 250, 300. I've seen some come through the get help section on the website, and you might get a 43-year-old with 600,000 or something crazy because they've just added extra for the last 20 years and done all that stuff.
Yeah. I was speaking to someone in defence yesterday. They got 17% and they're adding another 8 or something on their own. So they're going to be massively geared up in super. But going and looking, and I'm sure we're going to chat about this, but the 73 and the 52 for individuals and couples, it's relative to what you want your lifestyle to look like and how long you're going to live.
Yeah, so overall, the exact amount you need for retirement is as much as possible. So I'm just looking here. Again, it's from the ASFA's Super Balance, but I'm just on the ART website. They've had a few episodes with us. How much should I have at my age? So this is the should remember, working back to that modest retirement or comfortable retirement rather. 45, 226, 50, 296, 35, 111, 30, 66, 25, $26,000. The thing that I would say, what you actually have to look at is, you could be self-employed and work for yourself forevermore, have 50 grand in super, but you got 4 investment properties outside of super. I want you to look back at your whole asset pool, not just this. But I think the reason I just wanted to say that was as a benchmark for this kind of discussion. And then what we'll do, I'll go back to our little assumptions here. If you added the $500 a month extra at retirement or at age 65, your balance would increase to $1.236 million. And that's an extra $186,000 between now and 20 years. And based on the assumptions that we've used, your own contributions is about $60,000 and the investment growth is about $125,000. By putting money into superannuation as a salary sacrifice arrangement, you'll probably save about $1,020 per year at the moment on tax, because we've taken into account your marginal tax rate outside of super and the difference of the 15% tax into super. So all that to say is an extra $200,000 at retirement could be the difference between modest and comfortable. It's to illustrate that pretty much any money you invest at age 40 extra over the next 25 years will basically double in growth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And super isn't the only way to build wealth for your retirement.
Yeah.
But I just think it's a nice little thing because it's an easy assumption to make. And maybe the question is, if you are in your 40s and you haven't actively thought about building your financial future, you need to start right now, extra over your super contributions. And that, John, could mean the S word comes into play, and that S word is sacrifice.
What do you think, and I know this is an open-ended question, what do you think people might need in retirement? Like $1 million at 65, at 8.5% return gives you about 90 grand a year in return.
Put it this way, on the current assumptions, if someone was earning 90 grand a year at the moment as an individual and they had their super, they might be getting $1,100 a week after tax, right? If I guess what I'm saying is if the current way of retirement savings and super and pension in Australia, you'll be better off in retirement than you are right now. Because you'll own your house and you'll still have at least $1,000 a week to live off after tax.
That's right. Provided we get that sort of 7-8% return. If we're getting 5%, then it's relative.
And that's why I want everyone to, in today's dollars, and you can use online calculators, please sprinkle 50 grains of salt all over them, but it will just give you a good direction. Say, in retirement or when we stop working at age 60, the two of us, as a couple, we're going to own our home and we want $1,500 a week in the bank account. Use online calculators, use AI to back calculate it. How much do I need to save in today's dollars?
Yeah. And as I said before, the wealth magnets in our life are the key. So you might have...
Yeah, what are your wealth magnets?
Well, I think the top 4... I look at 4 pillars, I suppose, and say, right, principal place of residence is almost like a magnet on its own because it's not income producing, but it's wealth creating.
Yeah.
There's cash on its own to say year on year we can increase the cash. And then there's shares, super, and investment properties as the big ones. And the one that probably a lot of us have or may want to have is a business interest. Yeah. So I put those income producing assets into one bucket, if you want to call it, because they're the ones that are continually giving us income versus the ones that are sitting there creating wealth for us, like our principal place, and then the cash increasing year on year as well. But yeah, like you mentioned before, if you've got 50 grand in super now at age 40, but you've got a business and 3 investment properties and some ETFs over here, there's no need for concern.
Well, the only concern I would say is make sure you're not paying too much tax a year, because
Correct.
you can be paying less on tax systematically each year and building wealth for the long term. What's the problem?
That's right. Yeah. So that's where a good team of people is critical in that, isn't it? And obviously in this conversation, it's your accountant that says, hang on a minute, you're paying 60 grand in tax over here, but we're not offsetting any of that. So what can we do?
So, like, I've kind of printed our talking points and you've added to them and whatnot. I'm going to jump around a bit just because of the nature of our discussion so far. This episode, it's probably more a wake-up call, as I've said, and me having a rant and John having reason, because I want to rattle your cage in your 40s. I want you to be rattled. I need to be rattled. There's stuff in my life. I'm not above any of this crap. So let's talk. If someone is in their 40s, and there are genuine people in their 40s, single couples, familied, no familied, who are renting and they don't own a property. See that point that I've got there, John? Invest in your first property or another if you can. We'll forget about the other at the moment. But my next point under that, John, I've written, have you got a solid plan in relation to your housing strategy? And what I mean by that is I want you to say to your spouse or partner or to your mirror, because I live in Sydney, this is a dumpster fire of a property market, I can't get in. Out loud, I'm saying I'm going to rent here, take all the home fever away and not buying a house or a unit in Sydney, whatever that is, or Brisbane, Melbourne, wherever you live. And I'm just going to get the best deal I can on rent between now and age 60 or 65. And I'm going full ham in building assets, either super, an investment property, ETFs in my own name. Then once I stop working, I'll use that capital and buy a property. That's kind of what I want to take the conversation. What do you think about having a solid plan around a housing strategy?
Yeah, I think it's a different version to what we've seen 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. Like most suburbs in Sydney and to a lesser extent Brisbane, Melbourne were achievable for a lot of people 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Today, there is a lot of suburbs that just simply aren't. And those that are outside the cage will not get in the cage in the likes of Mosman and Manly and a few of those, like plenty of them actually. Toorak in Melbourne. But with that to say, I think there's a major shift in people's mindset. And it's a forced shift because we're saying, yeah, we can't afford to live here, but all my friends and family are here. Friends and somewhat family, we're taking off and moving to another area for lifestyle. Or they're sacrificing not having kids, or I'm only having one child because 2 or 3 means I can't work for the next 7 years because I'm just having kids all the time. So there's a lot of sacrifices being made at the moment out there where I'm either changing location, I'm either not having as many kids or kids at all, or I'm saying to myself, yeah, I'd love to live and own a house in Mosman. I can't afford it, but I want to live around here, so I'm going to rent, like you mentioned. That's okay for now. The question is, what about in 15 years' time when you wake up at age 50 or 55? Are you still wanting to be a renter? And I can't answer that today, but all I would say, like you've mentioned, is get on the investment train somewhere so that you've got opportunity and choice to say, well, at 55, you know what, I'm going to actually move to a regional location, or I might have met a partner by then and we're going to combine our assets and then have our opportunity to live in our own home. But it's the biggest sticking point in wealth creation, I think, in Australia is owning your own home. And not necessarily keeping up with the Joneses, just having a roof over our head now that 10 years ago was affordable is now not affordable because wage growth hasn't kept up.
So that's the question. If you don't own a home, what are your plans and what is your strategy? Because in a perfect world, by the time your tools are up, I want you to have enough cash to buy a house outright or pay off a mortgage, or at least once you call it 65, once you stop working, that you do not have any rent. And the good news is, it might not be good news for someone who's 58 listening to this or 60 listening to this, but if you're in your 40s, you've got time to really dial into this strategy. And there could be some sacrifices where I've got to rent somewhere not as good because I need extra money to invest for the future.
There's not many that won't have to sacrifice something.
100%. We'll come back to another one, but just on this housing strategy and the living strategy, my question to you, what are you going to do if you've got a mortgage now and the house is pretty good and livable, and you know you got kids or teenagers or whatever, and yeah, if they move out, you probably stay there for another 20 years, like it's all good, and there's a mortgage. What's your mortgage strategy? Is the plan to attack the mortgage with all vengeance, or to still build wealth elsewhere and keep the mortgage, cycling along, or do a bit of both? The maths all day long says over the longer term, financially you'll be better off not paying additional mortgage repayments and investing via salary sacrifice to super if you've got the caps on RetireRight. We did a whole episode with some strategies on that. But the numbers aren't the leading factor. What do you feel like? What's your risk profile? Does one of you in the relationship want to pay it off sooner? And we can do this within 10 years and then we'll be 50, then we can spend the next 15 years investing, knock yourself out. But again, I just want you to have a strategy with what you're doing. If you do have that mortgage, part of the strategy, if you do have a house and a mortgage, will you need to upgrade in 5 years? So this is all this stuff that you have to have a strategy.
Yeah. When I'm doing clarity calls, the biggest excitement comes from when we say, look, you can own your home outright in 5 years' time versus you can get 3 investment properties in 5 years' time. I think the excitement, the great Aussie dream is owning that home outright, isn't it? And having a forecast and a plan for that is step number one, I think, or the highest priority, because it eliminates your stress. It gives you lifestyle choice. You essentially own your own house, no monthly repayments anymore. But I think people underestimate just how quickly you can get that done. They underestimate the use of an offset account. They underestimate how much extra repayments they potentially could make, but also how much maybe $200 a week makes a difference over the next 10 years, right? You're cutting your mortgage by 5, 6, 7. Like we've done an assessment where you cut your mortgage in half just by simply making affordable repayments, where previously they've had the mindset of it's a 30-year term, so I'll just get on with my life and just do the bare minimum.
Here's the one strategy that will allow you to pay your home off sooner. You've skirted around it, but you weren't as direct, John. Pay extra on your bloody mortgage And if you've got savings and you've got short-term goals, use an offset account. I'm not a big fan of the redraw because I like money to be quarantined for the behavioural stuff. But if you want to pay your mortgage off in 7 years, you don't have to pay $5,000 to a seminar run by a mortgage broker who swears a lot and all that stuff. You just need to have a strategy, make a sacrifice, pay extra on your mortgage. We're not going to have 2 brand new cars at $1,500 a month car payment. Guess what? We're going to pay extra on our home. It might take us 7 years, it might take us 10 years, but it is possible if you are intentional, if you want to sacrifice, and if you're both on board.
Yeah, that's important when you've got a couple that you are both on that train. But I think having the first step in that is seeing what's possible on an online mortgage repayments calculator and saying, okay, if I adjust my lifestyle to $100 a week extra or $200 a week or $500 a week, whatever it is in your life, this is how many years I've cut it by, which means now I'm retired. Now I've got no mortgage at 50 versus the current pathway where it's going to be 60. It's a massive incentive, isn't it?
We'll take a break. When we get back, we will continue the conversation because we've got some hot button topics. We'll be back right after this.
If you're after personal financial advice, don't get it from a podcast. But if you want guidance tailored to your situation, head to moneypodcast.com.au and click Get Help. We'll connect you with one of our trusted professionals, financial advisors and mortgage brokers, who work with people right across Australia. No matter where you are, they can help. Now, before we get back to the show, a quick reminder to protect your financial life. That means having income protection sorted. It means having death cover if there's any debt or dependents relying on you. It means getting your personal insurance in order. Most people insure their car, they insure their house, but what about themselves? Sky Wealth, who support this podcast, are specialist financial advisors who can help you get the right cover in place. Their advice is often more comprehensive and better value than going direct through your super. Book a complimentary 15-minute chat at sky.com.au. That's skye.com.au, and they'll point you in the right direction.
I just want to come back and talk about those who have kids. You can talk about this, John, but, don't outsource your kids' financial literacy to someone else. That's for you to say something about that second point.
So, yeah, massively, I suppose, motivated by telling people to do this for their kids. It's the biggest gift you can give them is the education to understand financial wealth. Because let's be honest, we're doing this. It's not that hard. Okay, it's consistency and it's discipline and it's setting some wheels in motion to start early or earlier than I did anyway. So it's
Start what early?
Well, and that's the thing. I think the first part of it is the education before the implementation. Now, a lot of people say, "Oh, I want to get a home each for my kids." Right? Don't worry about the homes. Worry about teaching them the basic concepts. So, like we mentioned before, no bad debts, right? Having your emergency buffers, understanding how much comes in and how much goes out in your life, and be the example for them. If you're not an example for them, what have they got to aspire to? They're aspiring to the people closest to them in their life, right? And if you're just spending everything you earn, always having brand new cars, but not enough to go and invest or pay down your mortgage sooner, then that's what they're going to replicate until they're told otherwise.
One of my pet hates, and I get it because it's really it has really good intent. Where you said it before, people go, "Oh, I've got 3 kids. I want to make sure I buy an investment property per kid, and there's a property each." It's the worst strategy ever for a couple of reasons. Number one, well, what if one of the properties is worth more than the other one? What if the other one has debt on it more than the other one? It just gets messy real fast, but I get the intention and I like the fact that people are thinking, I want to help the future generation, all that. Awesome.
Yeah.
Just build wealth in your own name, and then when the time comes for that kid, you can then decide whether you want to be generous or not.
Yeah.
Simple.
And go and buy your 3 properties, but don't label it with
that's
Jimmy's one, Johnny's got this one, Timmy's got whoever it is. But yeah, you're right. And I think the other part to that is don't keep yourself awake at night thinking that you haven't done your job. And an example of that is you've taught them the concepts, they've asked maybe some questions or maybe not, but if you're talking about it with your partner or talking about it in general, they're going to soak some of that up. You don't have to sit them down and say, right, we're going to have a financial wellness session here at age 12 or 15 or 20, because they're not going to probably take a lot of that in. But if they've failed when they're 22, that's okay, right? You can't beat yourself up about it because they haven't gone down the path that you wanted them to. They've got to learn from the mistakes. But if they've got the actual foundations that you've led with right throughout that period, then they're going to be fine eventually.
Yeah, I reckon I was just thinking on the fly with teaching your kids about money, maybe 0 to 10 years old, we're just teaching broad concepts, give some, save some, spend some. Simple.
Yeah.
From, 10 to 15, maybe in that first getting older, getting a first job, we're actually teaching them, sure, give, save, spend, but some basic principles about, well, because you're now working or you're getting some pocket money or something like that, we're going to set you up 2 bank accounts. One's your long-term savings for this. One is for your, if you want to go to the movies or your mobile phone plan or whatever. So we're teaching the structural behavioural things around money management.
Yeah.
And then 15 plus, we're still doing give, save, spend, but the discussion can be that save thing, it might move to invest.
Buying first home, first car.
Or super can come into play. We did a full episode on the First Home Super Saver Scheme. You could probably start using that with your child pretty early because it's a good little scheme. We'll put a link below. Vince and I did a full deep dive, and it's the best kept secret. So I think it's age appropriate, and don't leave it to someone else.
One thing I'd add there is I'm having this conversation with our eldest now who's just got his L's, going to buy a car in the next 12 months.
What's he want to get?
Well, this is the conversation, right? So for any 16-year-old around the country, the top end of cars is what, do you think?
Is it – so for me it was like the Falcon and the Commodores. Is it now like Toyota 86?
79 series.
79, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the 86 was the little two-door coupe.
Yeah.
But now it's the 79 Land Cruiser.
Correct, yeah. And they're about $300,000 top end. But
welcome to life.
So where this conversation went, and one of my recommendations is, and I'm not an expert at this, but I do have these regular conversations, is be careful of your money language because we're not telling them that they can't afford that or we can't afford to do this. We're just apportioning our money somewhere else on this occasion.
Yeah, it's either or.
Yeah. But when I sat down with Max the other day because he asked me, right, Dad, how much will I have in 12 months? And we set a figure. Okay, what is that going to get us? And he's like, okay, well, that's fine. That wasn't really what I wanted.
I needed 112 grand for a second hand and 79, but I'm going to have $18,000.
So then we say, well, what will get you that goal? And then we do the maths and we run it down per month, per week. This is how much you actually have to earn. All of a sudden, it's a very different conversation. Now he's taking ownership of that and not putting his hand out for a loan. So I think it's educating them that way, not telling them that they're wrong or they can't have something, just outlining the
trade-offs,
the numbers,
sacrifice. And just we will move on from the kids thing, but around that age-appropriate thing, please show your kids monthly household expenses. You don't have to show them your income or your savings. It's just like, hey, kids, do you know how much it costs to wake up in your flipping bed every month? Well, here's our mortgage repayment. Here's your electricity. Here's your flipping internet.
Yes.
We need $7,000 or whatever it is a month to function.
Yeah.
So I know you want a PS5 or whatever the latest thing is. Chill out, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to burden them though, do you?
No, but that's why it's always age appropriate.
Yeah.
And it might not be the full budget, but it's like, hey, our mortgage is $3,000 a month or, $800 every week we have to pay.
Yeah.
You just worked yesterday and earned $60.
And that's when they really get a concept of it. It's like, okay, I worked for 4 hours. I've got myself $60 or $70.
Yeah. And mum and dad are paying $800 a week.
It cost us that just to live when you were at work.
Yes. So I put a second point here. I'll just read it and we'll discuss it because this could be really encouraging for people. Do you actually have a goal? Do you actually have a plan? Is your partner on board? I don't know if I should read the next one.
I think you should.
I wrote, is it worth, Glen, just staying alone? Lol.
For a number of reasons.
Oh, you wouldn't believe it. I'm ready, John. Put it that way.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Well, that's good because that's half the battle.
I've worked on me a lot the last 12, 18 months. Okay.
He's the best version of himself, ladies and
really
gentlemen.
am. With the goals thing, and then you can talk about this, in all the coaching that I've done with couples and individuals over the years, in my capacity as an idiot with a microphone, or when I was a licensed financial advisor giving personal advice, I think it's important. There's 3 types of goals. There might be 4, but I'm just talking financial at the moment. Your me goals, what do you want? Your them goals, what do they want? And us goals, what do we want? And that could be, there could be a family goal as well. So as a family, we want to go to Disneyland, Paris or something like that. You will only do as good financially in life as the capacity of your partner being on board. True or not?
To an extent.
Okay. Well, let's unpack this. You might be the saver. They might be the spender. You don't really talk. Red flag, maybe. The fact that you don't even communicate on a human level and you haven't for months and you're just in the trenches of life.
About finances or anything?
Anything, we'll put that aside.
Yeah.
But you might split your bank accounts up and that's their money, that's my money and all that. I think the reason I made that provocative comment before, and I am being provocative on purpose to rattle cages, you can have all the money and all the success and all the financial stuff in the world, but at what cost? Like if you got a crap relationship, well, would you rather less money and a functioning relationship? I don't know. And this is why I just want to, I'm not talking with answers, I'm just talking with prompts for people. Have you got you goals? Have you got them goals? Have you got us goals? What are we achieving as a family? If we do join our money together and we're in our 40s and, I really want, or John, you really want that new mountain bike. Amy really wants to set up a netball hoop or something in the background. I just thought she was into netball growing up and you were at netball courts on the weekend with all your kids and all that. So you want something, she wants something, and wants can be goals because we've got to save for it. And then we both want to go to Disneyland Paris. I'm sorry, but there's a triage moment and a priority moment and an adult conversation moment that needs to happen.
Yes.
Is it more important that Amy gets her netball hoop and concrete slab so she can shoot hoops?
Yes.
Is that more important than John's new road bike?
Yes.
Because he's already got 3 and just upgrading is a want? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you corrected it from mountain to road.
Sorry, I always
by the
say
way.
mountain.
I agree. I think I've always used the pizza slice analogy of in our life we've got maybe vocation, we've got family and friends, we've got our own health and fitness, and we might have some other pizza slice that we're passionate about or appreciate or value. So wealth creation enters all of those pizza slices, and it's just how we apportion that. But being on the same page is important, but being probably supportive is more important. So because you're always going to have, I think, not always, but 90% of the time I see someone leading it and the other one supportive. So that trip to Paris, you've got to agree on. If someone comes kicking and screaming to that, not going to end well. I see a lot of people that, and it's usually the male, sorry for the males out there, but they're just happy living life and not totally motivated to create wealth and whatever, but the partner is the go-getter. Okay, well just...
And he's got grazed hands because he walks around.
Yeah. And there's situations where, okay, here's your $200 a week, go and spend it, but you're not going to blow our wealth.
Yeah.
But just enjoy your life, and I'm happy with that, and we'll communicate occasionally, but that's okay. And it's not a love-hate, and there's never fighting, but it's just...
Yeah, it works.
Yeah. Rather than try and kick and scream this person to what I want, it's more of just a working relationship that still gets you the outcome you need. So there's no one-size-fits-all in this, is there? And that's the beauty of it. But I think it's just really understanding is it now versus later conversation.
And again, these are just all mental prompts for people to think about, of stuff that isn't ideal in their life that they want to change, because this is your wake-up call, this episode. On this real conversations with your partner, I just want you guys to flag in the back of your mind, and even if you don't have a partner, with your siblings, are there aging parents on the table? What is an actual scenario there? Thankfully for me at the moment, my sister lives very close to my parents in Brisbane, and I don't. So
does all the heavy lifting.
It's her problem when they need looking after. I joke, but it's a reality, right? So just, is that on the table? I think our retirement goals and plans, they need to be considered, even at a high level. And this is, John, a particular problem if there's one spouse that's older, maybe 10 to 15 years older.
Yes.
Someone could be in their peak of their career at age 40. Their spouse or partner might be 53.
Yeah.
Are they, wanting to caravan, and the other one's like, no, I'm at my peak income career right now.
I'm working.
Just have a discussion on that. And if you hate your life and you hate your job and all that, what are you doing with your career and your job? Because life's too short to be doing stuff in and out every day that makes you want to gouge your eyes out of your face.
Yeah.
Because
And you look at your 40s and you'd arguably say you're at almost your peak earning potential, aren't you? So that they're the years that you want to take real advantage of, and not that lifestyle creep sort of take over that with all the toys that we've spoken about. So it's not what we turn over, it's what's left over. So really understanding how you're going to map that out.
Yeah. And I put there as in that career thing, is there a business that you've always wanted to start and do now that maybe you are a bit established, and you've got the house, the mortgage, the kids and everything. The kids are about to come offline from private schooling or something like that. There's still time to take risks and start a business. I believe the great Colonel started his business in his 50s.
63 or something, wasn't it? When the recipe got the green light?
As long as you've got a pulse and a heartbeat, there's still time to do what you want to do.
I think we're living longer, as we mentioned, so that gives you a bit extra time, and maybe it's a legacy thing as well for the kids. In
finishing, I put time, how are you spending it, if you have any spare? Because we've only really got time.
168 hours in the week officially.
And we all have the same amount.
We do. And when you're in the trenches as a family, if you, for a lot of people in their 40s, you start a conversation with your partner and then 3 days later say, we never actually finished that conversation because something else got in the way, kids, whatever. So you're right. It's really appreciating that time and not being the colonel in designating every minute of every hour of every day to doing something, but you do need to chunk certain parts of it. So there might be checking points maybe on this to say once a month we just have a half-hour conversation around how we're tracking in this space.
Yeah. A reminder, your health and fitness. If you have not been to a flippin' GP in the last 12 months, get your ass there. Get your blood. Just tell the GP, I haven't been here for a while. Can you do my blood pressure, send me for some bloods, maybe put a glove on and give me a tickle if you're so inclined.
Yeah, well, in your 40s, you're now getting a lot of testing done for risk.
So my old man had prostate cancer at 55, and I asked my GP just last week, I'm like, hey, when do I need to start screening? He's like, probably after 45. But check, just if your mental health is in the gutter, it's okay. Just know that you can actually get help, because if you're not mentally there, all this other stuff, it's going to be really hard to get the plane to take off.
My mate went to the dentist a couple of weeks ago with a sore tooth and started whinging. He's not listening to this podcast, I'm sure. Whinging and moaning how much it was costing him because it just went on and on and on. I said, mate, you haven't been to the dentist for 10 years, so you're paying for it now. And these things are going to catch up with us more so in our 40s, I reckon, than ever.
Yeah. So just make sure, your blood pressure's good, your cholesterol's good, all your other blood markers are in line. Lose that weight, Glen.
Well, it's just overall health, and health doesn't come in the form of I look good in the mirror. There's so much internal stuff going on.
And like I recently, everyone knows, I've just started pickleball.
How is pickleball
it's great.
going?
A couple times a week. Might do a Wednesday or Thursday night, and then a Saturday, just the social, but running around for an hour and a half a couple of times a week. It's fun meeting new people, because I rocked up for the first time not having met anyone, so it was really scary and and that's that whole time thing, if you got spare time. And my last point, and we pretty much covered it-ish, and we'll swing back around to that other one as well. I'm just talking out loud. If you're in a position to cap out your super contributions, it's just free money in terms of the tax saving. So look at that with the salary sacrifice to super. Finally, John, one thing we didn't when I said invest in your first property or another if you can, if you have the desire to buy an investment property somewhere in Australia, if you have equity in your current home, if you have incomes, if you have the will, please reach out to Solvair Wealth, John's business, whatever. Just book in a coaching session. I don't know. Buy the property and get on with it if you want. It might not be that much out-of-pocket cost, and property situation in Australia ain't getting any better in the next 2 or 3 years. Flippin' look after yourself and your family. If you want an investment property, go get one. That's within the next year, go get one if you want one.
Ideally before ASAP. Christmas. But I think a lot of people can do it sooner than they realise.
Yeah.
And they look at how much they're saving each month and say, I could never afford a property. But there's a way around that. Yeah. If they've got equity in their home.
Yeah, and some of the ways around that is, one, the equity will fund the deposit. 2, any rent that is received from the tenants will help service the mortgage. If there are some deductions, instead of getting a $6,000 or $5,000 tax refund at the end of the year, you can do a withholding adjustment form, and so you get that extra $100 or whatever a week. You will need some surplus cash, but it might not be as much as what you think.
Well, and if you've got equity, you take that little bit extra to use the holding costs, then your tax return can prop a lot of that back up.
Yeah.
Don't spend it on a trip to Paris, but you can be strategic as a business owner, essentially. That's what you're doing when you're investing.
But just I need you to be shook listening to this. I need you to be offended at the stuff that I say. I need you to be outraged because it means I've got your attention. You wrote this point here, John. I think you have covered it. I will provide some commentary on real life, having been through all three stages, what we may have done differently. All right, well, give us a wrap-up of the 20s, 30s, and 40s, John. You probably don't remember writing that 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, so I thought you wrote that. That's how much I've forgotten. So, no. I think there's never a one-size-fits-all version. And what I'm seeing more increasingly of is people comparing themselves to others online. And we're probably part to blame for that because we're talking about case studies and stories and good news items and whatever else. That people have done this and that at age 25 and 35. And I think it's really important just to take stock and do what's in your control and work out what you need to do with action steps going forward, whether it's 20, 30, 40 or 80, right? We're always have an open mindset around improving in this space like any other space of our life. And I think if we're continually doing that and looking in our own backyard and not comparing ourselves to others and not looking back on what we didn't do, but rather looking forward to what we can do and what we can achieve. It's amazing what 10 years can do from a wealth creation point of view if you just apply that consistency in your life. So I think, do we all have regrets of what we may have done differently last time? Absolutely. But it's about learning from that and looking forward, not through the rear vision mirror for the next period of your life and chunk it out. What do we want to do? Where do we want to be in 10 years' time? Constantly looking at that.
Yeah, well said. Just as you're talking, I was writing down my concise points of the 20s, 30s and 40s episodes, and I'll read them now. Get over yourself. You're here now. Be intentional. Have a plan. Live on less than you earn. Be nice to people. Get help if you need it. Stay encouraged and motivated. Tell a friend about this podcast. Buy John's book, Sort Your Property Out and Get Invested, and my book, The Quick Start Guide to Investing. If you want to dial up your plans and your life, we've also got a book, Sort Your Career Out and Make More Money, because the best investment that you'll ever make is in your career, because your career is that annuity that once locked in, it will just spit out money and continue to generally spit out more money each year than inflation, hopefully, over time.
The good old folding stuff.
That's right. So we'll leave it there. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this 3-part series. Be sure to go over to Retire Right and you'll hear the 50s, 60s and 70s on YouTube. If you want to put this in the back of your mind, there's a dedicated playlist called Decades. So we'll have all the videos, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s and 70s. And you'll be well covered.
Strap in.
My name is Glen James. This is
John Pidgeon.
And you have been real. Bye.
Any advice is general financial advice only, which does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Because of that, you should consider if the advice is appropriate to you and your needs before acting on the information. If you do choose to buy a financial product, read the Product Disclosure Statement, PDS, and Target Market Determination, TMD, and obtain appropriate financial advice tailored to your needs. Simo Interactive Pty Ltd, the publisher of this podcast, and Glen James are authorised representatives of Money Sherpa Pty Ltd, which holds financial services license 451289. Opinions or comments from any guests on the podcast are theirs and not those of the host or the publisher or their respective license holders.